Welcome back, guys. It is a home makeover time. Let's go ahead and get started. I am on the mend and healing up. Look at this hand. Look at this movement. If you don't know, I had a hand injury and I have not been able to do any crafting and have pretty much had no videos the past month and a half. So I am healed up and trying to get back into the swing of things. So I'm gonna start out with doing a feature wall in my bathroom. We've done a lot of work in our house and basically got to the point where it was time to decorate and I was exhausted and didn't want to do it anymore. So I'm trying really hard to get back into the swing of things and really make our house a home. And I'm gonna start with just a small space and see if I can trigger that inspiration that I really need. So I'm going to be doing a feature wall in our small bath on our first floor, and I'm just going to do that with some wallpaper, some floating shelves, and just a little knickknacks and decorations. I'm going to be starting off by just wiping the wall down and getting off any dust or debris that might be on it, let it dry, and then I'm going to go in with some self-adhesive wallpaper. Now this wallpaper I've actually used in our master bath upstairs. You can see it here. I really like it, and I just had some left of that roll, and I want to just go ahead and use that up and use it here. This was made by they're commonly known as the Property Brothers or the Scott Brothers. It is called Scott Living, and it's their line of textured wallpaper. This wallpaper is nice and thick. It has a really good texture, and the reason why that's important is because one, it'll hide any imperfections, but two, the thickness of it keeps those imperfections from happening because it's not just gonna fold over itself or wrinkle very easily. Now it does still happen, but it is really helpful to have like a little bit of a thicker wallpaper when you're not very good at it like me. So this is kind of a tedious process, but it's not hard. It's kind of annoying, I guess. I just like things to just happen, and I, for some reason, really struggled with this wall. My wallpaper is about a year old, and I think that played into it. It's been kept in my laundry room, which kind of gets a little warm, and I think it had messed with my adhesive a little bit, because when I first did a project with this wallpaper, it worked great. It was still frustrating, don't get me wrong. I'm not a fan of having to wallpaper like a big wall, but it is doable. But my backing was kind of like ripping and sticking to the back, so it took me a lot longer to do. So if you do have wallpaper, don't store it. Keep it at a good room temperature, because it was right above where my dryer sits, and I really think that affected it. Anyway, I'm done babbling. You know I babble. Let's get started with placing this up. I'm just gonna leave a little bit of a lip over the top of our crown molding so that I can make sure I crease it in there really good, and I'm gonna come back at the end and cut it so that it's nice and straight. It fits perfectly the way it needs to. And I'm just gonna hug it up to the wall. If your wall is nice and straight, then it should be able to run straight down it without really having any issues. If your wall is not straight, you're gonna want it to overlap a little bit so you can cut a straight line to make it look pretty good. So I'm just gonna slowly start by adhering about a couple inches at the top and get it stuck before I start really peeling that back. I am using the, I don't know what to call it, but this flat plastic tool that they provided with the purchase of the wallpaper to help get all of the air bubbles out, make sure it's nice and flat, and to make sure that it's staying where you put it, where you want it, and the air bubbles are going out the sides. So I am just gonna slowly go down, removing that back, probably about a foot at a time. I start in the middle and then I push outwards. That's the technique that I found works best for me. I'm start in the middle, press it down, push the airs out the air. Oh my goodness, push the air out the sides, and I'm gonna do that all the way to the bottom. Now my toilet only sits about an inch off the wall, so that did provide another layer of complication for me. What I decided to do is whenever I had rolled it down, I made sure I cut a couple inches longer than what it looked like it needed, because I couldn't put it flat on the wall to measure it due to my toilet sitting there. So make sure whenever you measure it out, if you don't want to keep it on the roll, you cut a little bit extra than what you need so you don't cut it too short. I am going to go ahead and peel the back all the way off of it once I get down towards the toilet, and really carefully slide it back behind the toilet. trying to keep it from sticking to the wall, and then I'm just gonna run that down, make sure it sticks, and then get all of the air bubbles out. That side went pretty smoothly, other than that backing randomly ripping, and I had to like sit there and peel the back off in sections, and it was very frustrating, but it looks really good and I'm really happy. So I'm gonna move on to the next roll. So for the next column, so what I did in my big bathroom when I did it is I tried to line up those lines to where they kind of met. It's supposed to be a perfect match so that you can line the pattern up and you can't tell where the seam is very well. Since I had such short amount left, I didn't really have the option to do that. So I like lined it up the best I could to where it looked okay, but to where I wasn't wasting a big strip at the top because I needed to use every inch of this. So I lined it up the best I could. I am going to be using partial of it and folding it around my wall because it's a little wider than I need. I'm gonna cut off a lot of the excess but leave an overlap so that I can get that nice crisp clean line, and I'm gonna go ahead and start doing that same process. I'm gonna put a little bit onto the wall and start peeling it. Now with that fold in the, or like, you know, curve of it, it makes it a little harder to peel. So I decided to stop fighting with it and just go ahead and peel it down most of the way and then start adhering it, just being very careful that it wasn't overlapping or sticking to itself. You have to be very aware if you decide to remove the backing before you're ready. I got that down and covered the part. Now I did this strategically. I'm gonna have to patchwork now because of how this wallpaper looks. It's pretty easy to matchwork and hide, especially if you're doing it where I am, which is the side or behind the toilet where people aren't really gonna notice it. So I'm just going to patchwork a few other pieces there. It looks really good. My boyfriend didn't even notice that it was patchworked until I pointed it out to him. So very pleased with it, very happy with this wallpaper and how it looks. Now all you need to do after you get all your air bubbles out, make sure everything's sticking really well, is to go back with an X-Acto knife or a box cutter and trim away your edges just very lightly. You don't want to be scoring your wall. You just want to cut away the edges of the wallpaper. It cuts really easily and peels off. So I'm just going to do that to get those nice crisp edges all the way around. And easy as that. We have a brand new wall, looks beautiful, and now we can decorate. I went to Five Below and got some of their small, they're like 2-foot floating shelves. They have them in black and brown. And I decided to go ahead with black since all of our fixtures and things are black. And I am going to hang these on the wall. Now these are actually really nice shelves for what they are. They were $5 obviously at Five Below, and they come with an instruction manual, but also with the screws and drywall anchors that you need, as well as a template to show you exactly where the screws need to be. So what I did was take those templates, played around with them on the wall to see where I wanted them to hang. I taped them with some painter's tape to the wallpaper, that way it wouldn't rip it or disturb it, and leveled it out. Now I did this using my little laser level, not realizing that when I was holding the shelf up to make sure it was actually level, that it was reflecting off and causing some issues with what I thought was level. So one shelf was great. The other one I did have to tweak and fix a little bit. So I'm just gonna go ahead and say, go buy yourself a cheap little level. You don't need anything fancy, but an actual level you can sit on top of the shelf will probably save you a bit of a headache. So I just drilled my holes where I needed them, tapped in those anchors. If you don't have a stud finder, I do have a stud finder, but it's a little bit tricky because when I'm around, it just beeps all the time. It's just really a headache. So I used these little wall hangers. I don't know if you've seen them. They're kind of like a C shape, and you can poke them in and they kind of like hook to the back. So if the drywall's here, you poke them in and you turn them, and then they hook to the back of the wall, and then you can set like pictures and stuff on them. I use that just to poke through where my holes would be, and if it goes all the way through, I know it's just drywall and I need the drywall anchor. If it didn't, then I would know that there's a stud there and I need to just use the screws and pilot for the screws. So the reason that's important is your pilot hole for your wall anchors will be larger than what you would use for just a screw. If you're hanging this yourself and have no experience, I'm just trying to be thorough and helpful. If it is knowledge you don't need, ignore me. So yeah, I drilled my pilot holes, added my anchors, drilled in my screws, hung my shelves, tested them to make sure that I had them up there well. I think they're really cute. They're perfect for a space like this. If you have like one of the small bathrooms for guests and stuff on your you know, first floor in your home at all, to where it's just like your toilet and the sink. I know those type of bathrooms have a name, but I can't for the life of me think of it right now. But it is literally the perfect shelf for these. So I highly recommend them. They're in there. They've been hanging great. I have a couple knickknacks. I picked up this little plant from Five Below. The clock I had thrifted and just needed a spot for it, so it's perfect to put a little candle in there and just kind of decorated it up. So super easy project. If you don't have the frustrations like me, I'm not going to pretend like wallpaper is not frustrating. Like I said, I liked this a lot because it was a little bit thicker, but I think it's worth it because it gives you that nice, beautiful design and a pop and things that would be really hard to do with paint or other ways. So I recommend it. I got this from Lowe's, but I know you can get their stuff from Amazon and I'm sure other places. And that's pretty much it. If you liked this video, give me a thumbs up. If you'd like to see me healing up, give me a thumbs up. I'm watching you. If you're new here and haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing to my channel. I'm going to take you guys in for a closer look, and I'll see you next time.